The preceding program was made possible by a grant from the Ohio Department of Education.
In the country, you're very lucky if you're in the farm. Maybe you now appreciate a little bit more the people who live in the country in the United States. Goodbye, boys and girls.
This is WVIZ TV 25 Cleveland.
Gran, will you read me about Noah's Ark?
Hmm?
You know, from where it says God saw the wickedness of man was great upon the earth.
My, how you do love words.
Go on, Gran.
Not today. Instead, I'm going to tell you a story about something the wickedness of man brings to mind. Now, not so long ago, many Negroes were not free to come and go as they pleased. Rich white people owned them the way you own those wooden animals of yours. And these white people made their Negroes, they were called slaves, do what they wanted them to do, just as you do your toys.
That doesn't seem fair. People aren't toys.
That's what a lot of folks up north thought. It was one of the reasons for all the fighting between the North and the South. I'm talking about the Civil War.
Was the Negro people freed after the Civil War?
Even before it was over, President Abraham Lincoln signed a document called the Emancipation Proclamation freeing the slaves. It became the law of the land. That is why your grandfather, Langston, did what he could to change their minds. He went into politics and made speeches. So did your great-uncle, Congressman John Mercer Langston.
I guess what they did was pretty important, right, Gran?
It was. And don't you ever forget it, honey. You come from a long line of Negro men who didn't waste time crying about what was wrong. They set about trying to make things right.
I don't cry much.
Praise God. You haven't had any reason to yet. But I'm telling you now, boy, don't ever. When you feel like crying, laugh instead.
Langston Hughes was born in Joplin, Missouri in 1902. His father, James Hughes, didn't like the way black people were being treated in the United States, so he left his small family to live and work in Mexico. After a while, James sent for his family, and that was 6-year-old Langston, his mother, Carrie, and his grandmother, Mary. Well, soon after they arrived in Mexico, there was a terrible earthquake, and so they returned to their home in Lawrence, Kansas. Now, that was the last time Langston saw his father until he was 17 years old. Langston's mother then went to Topeka, Kansas, where she worked as a secretary, and so for a time he was reared by his grandmother. Eventually, he joined his mother, but in Topeka, he didn't have any friends, and he was quite lonesome, until the day his mother took him to visit the public library. There in the children's room, he discovered that books were not just for grown-ups. They were for him, too. Years later, when he wrote the story of his life, he said this.
There I first fell in love with librarians, those very nice folks who help you find wonderful books. And right then and there, books began to happen to me.
He found the library a peaceful place, too, and in school he was often glad to have it as a place for escape. You see, as the only Negro in an all-white school, he was sometimes called names and picked on by some of the other students. But he remembered his grandmother's advice. And though he couldn't always manage to laugh when he felt bad, he didn't cry either. When he was 12, he moved to Lincoln, Illinois with his mother and her new husband. There he entered the 8th grade, where he was one of 2 Negroes in his school class. But this time no one called him names nor picked on him, and his classmates accepted him as one of them. He was a very good student and was elected class poet. You see, he was already getting a reputation for putting words and rhythms together to form poems. As class poet, it was his job to write a poem and then recite it from the stage on graduation day.
My first poem was about the longest poem I ever wrote. 16 verses. In the first half, I said our school had the finest teachers there ever were. In the second half, I said our class was the greatest class that ever graduated.
Langston and his mother then moved to Cleveland, Ohio, to join her husband, his stepfather, who had taken a job in a steel mill there. Later on in Cleveland, Langston attended Central High School, where with his good nature and cheerful sense of humor, he made many friends. He held many class offices, was on the track team, and was a lieutenant in the high school military training corps. Yet for all of his extra activities, Langston never neglected his studies or his writing. Even then, he was putting words of the gospel and music rhythms together into poetry. And his English teacher appreciated his deep interest in poetry.
Just because words don't always rhyme doesn't mean they're not poetry. We call that type of poetry free verse.
But, Miss Weimer, I read an article in the newspaper that says that free verse is bad because it doesn't sound like regular poetry.
That's one writer's opinion. I disagree. Free verse is poetic, even if it doesn't have a regular rhyme. It all depends on the natural rhythms of our speech.
Well, maybe that newspaper writer doesn't care for free verse because it's modern. Maybe he thinks that only old things are good.
Maybe. But free verse isn't new, Langston. It was used in the Bible, in the Song of Songs, and in the Psalms.
Yes. Yes, I remember now. Yes, my grandmother used to read it to me.
The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul.
Miss Weimer, I think I could write free verse.
Why don't you try it? Then you bring it back here to me and we'll check it over together.
Okay.
With her encouragement, Langston began writing free verse. He found plenty of things to write about, too, like the steel mills where his stepfather worked, the girls who strolled past him on warm spring days, and the person who had become Langston's hero, Carl Sandburg, the great historian and poet.
I know a lover of life sings when Carl Sandburg sings. I know a lover of all the living sings then.
Langston's English teacher urged him to send some of his poems to the high school magazine. He did, and to his happy surprise, they were printed. After he graduated from Central High, he went to Mexico to live with his real father, James Hughes. Now, the train that took him to Mexico had to cross the Mississippi River. And as he sat staring at it, Langston thought about how great a part the Mississippi and other rivers had played in the history of black people through the ages. He thought about the stories folks, dead and gone, could tell about rivers they had known. The words of a poem began flowing through his mind. He started writing, and within a short time, he had composed the poem that has since been printed and reprinted in many books and languages all over the world. He called it, The Negro Speaks of Rivers.
I've known rivers. I've known rivers ancient as the world and older than the flow of human blood in human veins. My soul has grown deep like the rivers.
Now, James Hughes, who had worked long and hard for his success, wanted Langston to follow in his footsteps. He hoped that his son would one day take over the management of his ranch in Mexico.
In Mexico, no one will try to stop you because of your color. Your future is secure here, Lang, with me. I've got plans for you. First, I'm going to send you to college in Switzerland to learn languages. After Switzerland, an engineering school in Germany. And then you'll come back here to stay.
But, Dad...
No buts. You're going to be a mining engineer, and a good one. I need one in my company who would be better than a man's own son.
But Dad, look, I don't want to go to Switzerland or Germany. Look, I don't want to be a mining engineer. Look, I want to be a writer.